And I'm really sorry that these conversations are being had by a comedian. I wish, too, that it was a religious leader of some kind having this conversation.
The reason why people who work for Beyonce don't talk is because they're all on NDAs. Because that's also how she works. She silences people so that nobody can speak.
Beyonce, how you step on anybody to stay on the top.
If you know Beyonce, then you'd know she's got this fierce fan base, the Bayhive. They're super protective of her, and messing with Beyonce is like playing with fire. But then you've got folks like Katt Williams who just couldn't care less about all that. I mean, remember when he practically set the internet on fire earlier this year with his no-holds-barred takedowns of pretty much everyone? The guy doesn't mince words. And now, word on the street is that Katt's aiming his sights at none other than Queen Bey herself. Yeah, apparently he's got some serious dirt on Beyonce's otherwise glittering career, and he's not afraid to spill the tea. There's talk of some pretty disturbing footage in the mix too. I mean, he is pretty much challenging one of the biggest music icons ever. That's like stepping into a lion's den, especially with the Bayhive ready to swarm at any moment. But Katt's never been one to bite his tongue, no matter the backlash. So buckle up, because it looks like things are about to get real interesting. So in a recent interview, Katt went off on a whole spiel about how the music business operates behind closed doors. According to him, it's like this big chess game with certain players holding all the power up top. Now, Katt didn't exactly name names this time around, but fans are going wild speculating that he's throwing subtle shade at none other than Beyonce herself. Like, could it be that her whole empire is built on the backs of others? Katt didn't outright point fingers, but you know how fans are. They're reading between the lines and connecting dots faster than a detective on a crime scene. Now, let's talk about Queen Bey, the ultimate embodiment of a glamorous music career. I mean, Beyonce's like the blueprint for success in the industry. Awards stacked on awards, a whole empire worth billion, and a fan base that's straight up devoted. Ever since Dangerously in Love dropped, she's just been aging like the finest wine out there. But there's some folks like Katt Williams saying it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies on her way to the top. In this interview with Carrie Champion, Katt didn't hold anything back. He straight up spilled the tea on how the music business really works behind the scenes.
I'm saying that everything that happens in a business that's based off of pretend that seems like a setup is.
According to him, all those so-called lucky breaks or career disasters that fans see. Yeah, they're not just random events. They're carefully planned moves orchestrated by the powers that be. Take Janet Jackson's infamous Super Bowl wardrobe malfunction, for example. Katt's saying there's always someone pulling the strings and benefiting from these kinds of incidents.
When things go smoothly, but they seem chaotic, that means there was forethought and a plan. Somebody, even if it looks like, yeah, Janet Jackson just had a wardrobe malfunction. No such thing.
Like, think about it. Janet's career took a major hit after that whole debacle, while Justin Timberlake just kept on rising. Coincidence? Katt's not buying it, and honestly, neither should we.
So in all of these situations, there's a business involved and there's real money involved. Somebody's benefiting from this thing that looks like, oh, that just happened.
He's telling fans straight up, don't just swallow everything you see about your favorite celebs. Sometimes there's some real shady stuff going on behind the scenes, and yeah, that includes our girl Beyonce too. It's like he's giving everyone a reality check saying, hey, wake up and smell the truth. So next time you're jamming out to Crazy in Love, maybe hit pause for a sec and think about what's really going on in the music world. Sure, Beyonce's a legend and all, but let's not pretend her journey's been all sunshine and rainbows. Nah, she's had her fair share of drama, just like everyone else. There's been rumors floating around about Beyonce messing with other women in the industry. Take Tiara Mari, for example. Back in 2005, a young Tiara Mari scored a deal with Jay-Z's Rockefeller Record. She was not just talented, but also stunning, and she was only 17. Under Jay-Z's wing, Tiara dropped Make Her Feel Good from her first album, and it was an instant hit. Seriously, the song's title wasn't lying. It made her feel good watching her debut climb the chart. And come on, what's better than having Jay-Z as your project's dad and being crowned the princess of Def Jam Records? Tiara was living the dream, no doubt. Also, around the same time, you've got a young Rihanna and Nayo signing up with Def Jam Records. Now, Tiara Mari was already the official princess of the label, stealing all the attention. Being an immigrant from Barbados, Rihanna was kinda in the shadows compared to her more promising label mate. But everything flipped when Queen Bey decided she was vibing more with Rihanna. Suddenly, the label dynamic shifted, and Tiara got the boot. L.A. Reid spilled the beans in his memoir, saying that initially they thought Tiara was the bigger star between her and Rihanna, but Queen Bee stepped in in made them reconsider and signed Rihanna. Reed said, "We had an in-house company showcase and Beyoncé happened to be there with Jay-Z, Tierra Marie, Rihanna. A four-girl group called Black Butterfly and Neo performed. At the label, we thought Tierra Marie would be a big star. We spent more time on her, did more work on her, paid more attention to her. A bell went off for me, however, when after the showcase, Beyoncé came up to me and said, 'That Rihanna girl, she's a After a little nudge from Beyoncé, the execs decided to give Rihanna a closer look. Fast forward to 2006, and they hit up Tierra Marie with a call, not a fancy letter, just a call, probably made by some staff. And what for? Well, nobody really knows. Imagine getting the without a proper heads up from a guy you saw as a father figure. Tierra spilled the tea saying Jay-Z himself never bothered to give her the news. She said, "Jay-Z didn't call me to tell me bye-bye. If things played out differently, Tierra could have been today's Rihanna or a big Tierra, considering her undeniable talent. But alas, her peak fame window was from 2005 to 2006. Since that day and Beyoncé's Say So, she's been hustling as a struggling artist with just one hit to her name. Another artist that was allegedly also silenced by Beyoncé was Blue Cantrell. Back in the early 2000s, she was a big name in R&B, giving Beyoncé a run for her money. Tracks like Hit 'Em Up Style and Breathe were climbing charts everywhere. Blue was on fire, but here's the kicker. After years of rocking the scene, she vanished from the public eye. Given her obvious talent, record labels were practically fighting over her. Eventually, Blue decided to roll with Arista Records. She dropped her first single, Hit 'Em Up Style, in April 2001, and it blew up, like seriously blew up. The song not only snagged the #2 spot on the Billboard Hot 100, but also scored her a Grammy nom for Best Female R&B Vocal Performance. Blue Cantrell was riding the wave of success back then. In the same year, her debut album, So Blue, went platinum, and things kept looking up till 2003 when she dropped her second album, Bittersweet. That one included the hit Breathe featuring Sean Paul, earning her a second Grammy nom, this time for Best R&B Album. Now here's where it gets interesting. Amid all her achievements, Blue had these persistent rumors flying around saying she was in some intense feud with Beyoncé. Now Beyoncé was just kicking off her solo career with Dangerously in Love, and she was in the early days of her thing with Jay-Z. Blue, on the other hand, was tight with Jay and dropping R&B chart toppers around the same time. You can guess how the gossip started. Whenever folks asked Blue about her and Jay-Z, she always shot it down, saying there was nothing going on. Although she did spill the beans to Wendy Williams once, admitting she had a big crush on him. She said, "I still have a crush on him now." She spilled, "I don't care who he's dating. I always had a crush on him." It seemed Beyoncé wasn't too thrilled about Blue having a thing for her man, Jay-Z. And Blue didn't exactly pour cold water on the feud. Things got even spicier when she pointed out similarities between her songs and Beyoncé's. In an interview with The Guardian, she mentioned how the music video for Beyoncé and Jay-Z's Bonnie and Clyde seemed a lot like the promo for her song Round Up, which came out first.
Unleash the flu.
And Beyoncé? Well, she threw some fuel on the fire too. In the song Signs, she drops this line about being in love with a Sagittarius, Jay-Z, and being hurt by a Pisces, Blue. This didn't sit well with Blue, and she said, "Maybe she's trying to do it to get press. But I want to make her understand if she goes there with me, it's the wrong move. She needs to understand what she's doing and what she's getting into. I'm a master at singing." The drama didn't stop there. Blue Cantrell wasn't letting Beyoncé off the hook. After catching wind of the whispers, she fired back, accusing Beyoncé of her off. The heat got turned up when Blue heard Beyoncé's single Baby Boy and thought it was way too similar to her own chart-topping hit, Breathe. Both tunes were edgy R&B jams featuring Sean Paul, and Blue wasn't having it. She straight up complained about it, saying, "Beyoncé is talented and beautiful, and I'm a fan, but she has a song out which is very similar to mine. She uses words that are in the hook of my song, and if she's that talented, she shouldn't have to copy someone else. Her song Baby Boy has the exact word, breathe, in the hook." She continued her rant saying, "She's me off, but there is no animosity because I'm a very positive person. However, I'm a little disappointed because she is established and didn't have to do that, but she won't get away with plagiarizing me because I'm a #1 artist." Now here's the wild turn in the story. It wasn't long after the feud, according to TMZ, Blue Cantrell had this bizarre episode. They reported she was running through the streets in Santa Monica, ranting about people trying to her. The whole thing went down around 2 a.m., and witnesses said she was going on about someone giving her poisonous gas. It got so intense that someone had to call the cops. When the officers showed up, Blue pulled the "Do you know who I am?" card and even referred to herself as a one-hit wonder. The cops decided to take her to a nearby hospital for a checkup. After that incident, it's like Blue vanished into thin air, while Beyoncé just kept on slaying with her tours. And then there's the song Stealing Saga. Tiffany Red spilled the tea about this and shined a spotlight on Beyoncé for allegedly taking credit for songs she didn't actually pen. For those of you who don't know, Tiffany is basically the behind-the-scenes powerhouse who's penned hits for some major players in the music like Jennifer Hudson, Fantasia, Tamar Braxton, and even wrote Zendaya's banger, Replay. Plus, she's got Cassie's back too. She went all in on an interview not too long ago, calling out Diddy for how he treated her. And Tiffany's not the type to stay silent. She's on a mission, and this year seems to be all about laying bare the not-so-pretty truths of the music industry. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Unfair practices. Tiffany's been spilling the tea on how songwriters often get the short end of the stick. You see, when a songwriter pens a tune for an artist, the artist often snags a chunk of the publishing, even if they didn't lift a finger on the writing front. And guess who's one of the poster kids for this whole shindig? Queen Bey herself. Not only does she nab credit for songs she didn't whip up, but she's also raking in a hefty chunk of the royalties, and it's eating into the pockets of the real wordsmiths behind the tunes. But here's the thing, Beyoncé's been able to pull off this slick move because she's got folks signing NDAs left, right, and center whenever they hop on board to work with her. That means they're basically sworn to secrecy. No griping allowed. I mean, let's be real. Who's gonna call out Beyoncé? Now, Tiffany Red might not have teamed up with Beyoncé on a project, but she's definitely got something to say about Queen B's game. See, Tiffany's fed up with the whole music scene, and she's not holding back. Why? Well, because the game's changed. Songs aren't flying off the shelves like they used to. Nowadays, it's all about streaming. And streaming isn't exactly lining artists' pockets with gold. It's more like a trickle of spare change. And who's feeling the pinch the most? The songwriters. These folks used to be rolling in the dough, but now they're barely scraping by. Tiffany's had enough of seeing her fellow wordsmiths getting the short end of the stick, and she's not afraid to name names. After Jay-Z threw some shade at the Grammys for snubbing Beyoncé, Tiffany decided it was time to speak her mind. She straight up called out Beyoncé, saying maybe she'll snag that coveted Album of the Year Grammy when she starts giving songwriters their due and stops swiping their publishing rights. Rumor has it, that's a hefty 15% to 30%. Now, this comment from Tiffany is like opening Pandora's box because there's a whole lot to unpack here. Some folks out here are scratching their heads wondering why Beyoncé hasn't snagged that Album of the Year Grammy, especially with bangers like Lemonade in her repertoire. But if word on the street is true and Beyoncé's playing fast and loose with her songwriters' paychecks, well, that could be a major roadblock. I'm not saying it's the whole story, but it's definitely food for thought. And then there's the writing on the wall, or lack thereof. See, past Album of the Year winners like Taylor Swift, Billie Eilish, Adele, and Bruno Mars, they're all known for crafting their own tunes. They're songwriting wizards, and Beyoncé, not so much. So it's not totally out of left field to think that might be factoring into the Grammy snubs. Tiffany also didn't hold back in her latest live video. She had a lot more to say about Beyoncé. She's basically saying, hey, we all call it Beyoncé's internet, right? So shouldn't we be able to talk to the queen about updating her business practices? Tiffany's pointing out how the music industry has changed a lot since Beyoncé started out. Publishing just doesn't bring in as much cash as it used to, especially if you're not the one writing the hit singles. And every percentage of that publishing money matters a lot these days. But despite all that, Beyoncé still takes her cut. Tiffany's saying, hey, wouldn't it be nice to see some changes? A lot of songwriters and producers agree with me. She's basically asking for songwriters to get paid better for their work.
To modernize her business and pay songwriters a livable wage. It's not too much to ask. She made $579 million off that Renaissance tour. Ask the writers how much they made.
Tiffany kept going, and she was talked about how she heard Beyoncé's song, My Power, in the car, and the lyrics got to her. They're all about not letting anyone take your power, but then she's thinking about all the songwriters who've written for Beyoncé, whose power, in a way. She cited Break My Soul as an example, and how many songwriters' souls have been broken, because Beyoncé takes their publishing, which is basically all they've got. Watching Beyoncé get even more famous and richer off the lyrics they wrote, but the writers are left with nothing. She also mentioned freedom, and says it's not really freedom if you're not getting what you're owed. Tiffany respects Beyoncé's talent, no doubt, but she's calling her out for being a bit of a hypocrite. All these lyrics about liberation, but the people who write them aren't getting paid fairly.
You won't break my soul. And then I think about how many songwriters' souls have been broken as this woman is taking the publishing, which is the only thing that they have. They're publishing in a big chunk too.
So, Tiffany kept going, explaining why she called out Beyoncé. She basically said Beyoncé is like the Michael Jackson of our generation, huge influence and all. She talked to someone whose friend worked on Beyoncé's Renaissance record, which is a fan favorite. Turns out the song was written 6 years before Beyoncé got it, but she still took 25% of it. Then she mentioned another writer who contributed to one of our favorite songs, but his credit wasn't right and his business got messed up. Beyoncé even went on tour with that song last year, using someone else's vocals without giving them proper credit. Tiffany pointed out that people who work for Beyoncé don't speak out because they're all under NDAs. That's just how she operates, keeping everyone silent.
The reason why people who work for Beyoncé don't talk is because they're all on NDAs. Because that's also how she works. She silences people so that nobody can speak.
And it's not the first time someone's called her out for this stuff. Kellis did something similar in 2022, claiming Beyoncé used parts of her song Milkshake without permission in the Renaissance track Energy. Kellis took to Instagram to express her thoughts. She started with a somewhat passive-aggressive comment about Beyoncé, acknowledging that sampling is common in the industry. However, Kellis emphasized that the real issue is the lack of common decency in not seeking her permission for the sample.
The reality is that my real is not only with Beyoncé, because at the end of the day,
as a Black female artist, Kellis pointed out the shared experiences and networks within the industry, making it clear that it wouldn't be challenging for Beyoncé to contact her directly. Kellis asserted her knowledge of what she owns and what was taken from her in the past, referencing instances of stolen publishing and swindled rights that she believes occur frequently in the music industry. Kellis also took humorous shots at Chad Hugo, describing him as an amoeba and implying he lacks a backbone. She contrasted this with Pharrell, suggesting that he should know better. In a subsequent video, Kellis highlighted Pharrell's hypocrisy by referencing an interview he did with Variety, where he discussed artist rights and the importance of fair deals. Kellis claimed that when she was signed to Pharrell, they shared the same manager, Rob Walker, who received writing credits on her records despite not contributing lyrics. She insinuated that this arrangement could have led to Walker continuing to receive royalties from her music, a situation that she found unacceptable.
but the reality is that this is more about the fact that there's a lot of and there's a lot of so we've got Pharrell, who did a video.
That's Tiffany's take on things, really laying it all out there. She's calling Beyoncé out and saying she needs to listen up and make some changes. And Tiffany might have a point. Maybe Beyoncé's struggles to win Album of the Year at the Grammys have something to do with all this behind-the-scenes stuff. It's no secret that Beyoncé has a ton of Grammy wins, and some people speculate it's because of her connections, like Jay-Z being on the voting committee. But even with all that, some folks still won't give her that top award. Maybe it's because of how she handles things in the industry. It's interesting how everyone kind of knows about it, but songwriters still line up to work with her. It's like, why put yourself through that if you know what you're getting into? Sure, having Beyoncé's name on your resume is a big deal, but it doesn't pay the bills. It's a tough call for songwriters, is the fame and prestige worth the grind and the lack of recognition? It seems like some people in the industry are willing to overlook their principles just to be associated with Beyoncé. At the end of the day, though, it's their call, and they can't really blame anyone else if they end up getting shortchanged. They knew the deal going in. So, from accusations of theft to stifling other artists' voices, Beyoncé's closet isn't exactly squeaky clean. Katt Williams may have sparked controversies with his claim, but it's got people wondering, is there more to Beyoncé's empire that meets the eye? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and we'll catch you in the next video.